sanctuary of a temporary kind, therefore all the more delicious. But whenever I come into a hotel room, and there's a moment after the door is shut, and the lights you haven't turned on illumine a very comfortable, anonymous, subtly hostile environment, and you know that you found the little place in the grass, and the hounds are going to go by for 3 more hours. You're going to have a drink, light a cigarette, and take a long time shaving.
More.
More? You like that, do you? There. Now, don't you look beautiful?
I look better than when I started.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do something about my body?
A lady journalist in Winnipeg once described him as having the stoop of an aged crop picker and the face of a curious little boy. His talent has been saluted by the international press. Canadian critics have called him the finest poet of his generation. He himself says he has chosen a path that is infinitely wide and without direction. This, he says, is a very good path for someone who moves in the funny way that he does.
All right, we've got your concern. Your concern is Irving Layton and his survival, even more than the survival of the mass of the human
race. And Cohen's concern is my renunciation of the Canadian public.
Is this true, or have you some other concern, Mr. Cohen, that you'd like to get off your chest right now?
I haven't a single concern.
Well, come on now. What do you care about, really? Don't you care about anything? How can you be a good poet and not care about something?
No, I do the poetry, you do the commentary.
No, but let's get this straight. Are you saying that that there's nothing that worries you, nothing that bothers you? How can you write poetry if you're not bothered by something? Are you?
Well, I'm bothered when I get up in the morning. My real concern is to discover whether or not I'm in a state of grace. And if I make that investigation and I discover that if I'm not in a state of grace, I try to go to bed.
What do you mean by a state of grace? It's a phrase that I've never understood.
That's a state of grace is that kind of balance with which you ride the chaos that you find around you. It's not a matter of resolving the chaos, because there's something arrogant and warlike about putting the world in order, but having that kind of, like an escaped ski down over a hill, just going through the contours of the chaos.
You have lost me.
What Cohen is trying to do right now is to preserve the self. That's his real concern. I think that is the concern for every poet, to preserve the self in a world that is rapidly steamrolling the selves out of existence and establishing a uniform world.
What do you make out with Pierre Burton?
Well, he really wanted me to cut my con out. You know, he really implied that, okay, Leonard Cohen, we know the party line. You know, we know what you've got to do. Now really tell us the business about poetry. What's the true story, you know? Is wrestling really fixed?
Leonard Cohen, Spice Box of Earth, take 1.
Okay, Leonard, we start on the Spice Box, and any place we come across a dirty word, we have to delete it.
Yeah, well, there are no dirty words, ever.
Leonard, just try to remember this is a performance.
The University of Toronto has bought his manuscripts. His work is put on phonograph records.
I'll do something with them. I know they're kind of flat. Spice Box of Earth, a kite is a victim, page 1. A kite is a victim you are sure of. You love it because it pulls gentle enough to call you master, strong enough to call you fool, because it lives like a desperate trained falcon in the high, sweet air, and you can always haul it down to tame it in your drawer. A kite is a contract of glory that must be made with the sun. So you make friends with the field, the river, and the wind. Then you pray the whole cold night before under the traveling, cordless moon to make you worthy and lyric and pure. Cut.
Leonard Cohen wants to be heard. He's been known to leave his mark on the wall of a favorite hangout.
The bistro is like an irresponsible sanctuary. You aren't sure whether the hounds are waiting inside or whether you've just left them.
Double cognac.
There's a very particular glow that a hostile crowd emits. Now, the crowd that is interested in consuming you in it. But sometimes, on the other hand, it's composed of some sort of fixative that is sprayed on you as soon as you walk in, and you become very, very much yourself, and everybody is very much himself.
Graham,
you suffer as much as I do. I'd like to see that.
I'm no longer allowed in. I'm no longer...
He said to me one night, "You don't want that man in here molesting you."
Yeah, sure. So he cussed me out. Don't come in here. I'll hit you over the head with a bottle.
Last time you called the cops.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're not a respectable customer.
The hell I'm not. Quiet. Drunk.
He's one of the most respectable customers
He
I've ever
doesn't
met.
know. He doesn't have a nice white shirt and a business suit and everything.
Who the hell does? How many shirts are in here now?
Yeah, but this is the store.
No, it's the bistro. À la bistro.
Cohen has been in films since 1937.
Here is a movie filled with the bodies of his family. His father aims the camera at his uncles, tall and serious boutonnieres in their dark lapels, who walk too close and enter into blurredom. Now the boy and his cousins fight small, gentlemanly battles. The girls curtsy. All the children are invited to leap one at a time across the flagstone path. A battalion of wives is squeezed abreast, is decimated by the edge of the screen. His mother is one of the first to go.
Much of his early life and much of his writing centers on the Montreal Park where he played as a child.
The park nourished all the sleepers in the surrounding houses. It was the green heart. It gave the children dangerous bushes and heroic landscapes so they could imagine bravery. It gave the nurses and maids winding walks so they could imagine beauty.
It gave Cohen a place to meet girls so he could imagine love.
He wanted to know everything about her. Was she allowed to listen to The Shadow? Could she get gangbusters? Had she ever been called a dirty Jew? They fell silent, and the nurses and their blonde babies reasserted their control of the universe. They squeezed hands, kissed once when the light was low enough, coming golden through the prickly bushes. And they walked slowly home, not holding hands, but bumping against each other. Grievman sat at the table, trying to understand why he wasn't hungry. His mother extolled the lamb chops.
His mother still lives in the house of his childhood, and he pays her periodic visits. It has been claimed that he lives off his family. He has an inheritance of $750 a year.
I am sorry that the rich man must go and his house become a hospital. I loved his wine, his contemptuous servants, his 10-year-old ceremonies. I loved his car, which he wore like a snail shell everywhere, and I loved his wife, the hours she put into her skin, the milk, the lust, the industries that served her complexion. I loved his son, who looked British, but had American ambitions, and let the word aristocrat comfort him like a reprieve while Kennedy reigned. I love the rich man. I hate to see his season ticket for the opera fall into a pool for opera lovers. Just beyond the green rose the large stone houses of Westmount Avenue. In them, the baseball players were growing their bodies with sleep, resting their voices. He imagined that he could see them dimly through the walls of the upper stories, or rather the sheets they were wrapped in, floating row upon row over the street, like a colony of cocoons in a moonlit tree. The young men of his age, Christian and blonde, dreaming of Jewish sex and bank careers.